Good morning, CaneSport. It's August the 23rd, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined today by our managing editor, Matt, the great one, Shodell, and Stephen Wagner, as we discuss the news of the day. I got to come up with a better nickname than that, Matt. I'm sorry. That was just like, it just like flashed through my head. We'll work on that. But today, the news of the day is centered around recruiting for a couple of different reasons. We dispatched Stephen Wagner out to Hollywood Chaminade High School yesterday afternoon, and he came back with all kinds of nuggets and interesting stuff that you'll be reading on the website this morning and in the coming hours. And then, as that was going on, the Miami Hurricanes received the commitment from a 2026 wide receiver from American Heritage High School. His name is Malachi Tony, and we will talk about that a little bit as well. And just give you an idea, it's still a few years away, obviously, but a guy that Miami definitely felt like it wanted as a foundation for the 2026 recruiting class. All right, Stephen. So let's let Matt just sit there and chill out, as hard as it's going to be for him for a few minutes. And let's unpack those first two things I mentioned. Since it's a commit, let's start with the commit. Malachi Tony is a young prospect from South Florida. He plays for American Heritage. We've had the chance to watch him at some of the camps that Miami had this summer, and you could see his raw ability. Definitely right now is playing probably at least a year beyond his age. He does not look like a 2026 kid. You would say he's probably more like a 2025 kid. Miami locks in on him early, takes a commitment Tuesday evening. Your thoughts on that take for the Hurricanes?
Yeah, so after having the chance to kind of see him earlier this year, was able to see him a little bit on the 7-on-7 circuits. He is a really, really talented player who plays like you said, he plays a lot older than he is. You know, the first time that I saw him, I kind of thought to myself, man, you know, he really does look kind of like a 2025 guy, which, you know, whenever you're as old as Matt and Gary are, you say, well, what's the difference between 78 and 79? But whenever you're 14, 15 years old, there really is a big difference developmentally between being 14 and 15 years old. And Tony, he's a smaller guy. He's only about 5'9". I think he's about 165 pounds, somewhere in there. But his speed is really what sets him apart. The first time that I saw him, I thought to myself, he kind of reminds me of Ray Joseph a little bit, like a younger Ray Joseph. But his his ceiling is through the roof. The talent is absolutely there. I just think it's going to be one of these things where we're going to have to monitor it, and we're going to have to see how he develops. Because if he develops into the prospect we think that he can be, he's definitely going to be a top 300 four-star recruit whenever On3 finally ranks that 2026 class formally. I have a lot of belief in this kid, and being over at American Heritage, I think that's going to be very good for his development. I think he'll develop really well. I think that the foundation is absolutely there. And this was a get that we definitely didn't expect this early in the class. You know, I'll be honest, I didn't think he was going to be committing until next year, or, you know, heck, even his senior year of high school. But now that he has committed, I don't think that there's going to be very many Miami coaches that are going to tell you they're upset that they've got him locked up already.
All right. First of all, okay, you don't get to make old age jokes on me and Matt until you're at least 22. Okay. So, you know, remember your place in this operation. All right. And Matt's the comedian of the team also. You know, you're the straight guy. So what are you shaking your head for, Shodell? Anyway, listen. So I like the fact that Miami's out ahead in recruiting. I mean, that I think that's a good thing, something that we haven't seen a lot of, really. And the other thing is, and you know, Matt, you could attest to this. We're not too many months removed from Miami being absolutely on the outside looking in at American Heritage. Okay, American Heritage has had some of the top players in the area for many, many years. They all were leaving town, okay, up until a year or so ago. So This is the continuation of Miami making a comeback at Heritage. Matt, you've been around this for so long. Even you, the negative Nancy of South Florida, has to be impressed with the upgraded recruitment that Miami is displaying at American Heritage and Plantation.
I haven't been paying attention, but you're talking about a 2026 kid, right, that committed? Is this what we're talking about? And now all of a sudden Miami's getting everyone from American Heritage? I'm just trying to catch up here. Is that what you're saying?
That's not the only one.
Oh, okay.
You got Mark Fletcher. You got the Brown brothers. They've been making headway.
Brown brothers. One of them went to UCF.
Now he's back. Yes, he did. But now he's back.
Listen, but the truth is, obviously, you need Heritage, St. Thomas, Miami Central. This is the whole point of building a championship program, is having all the the fence that Howard Schnellenberger built. He built an electric fence, and it became like a wood fence with a lot of holes in it, falling apart. And they're trying to re-electrify it. So yeah, it's nice to get not a 2026 commit. That doesn't excite me, but it's nice to get commitments from that program, because it shows there's excitement at American Heritage. And you guys know me, I don't get excited about stupidity like this. I mean, 2026, are you serious? But with that said, when it's at that school, that does excite me. And fans should be excited because it's from that school, not because it's a 2026 recruit, not because it's a great player who in 7 years might be starting in Miami, but because it's American Heritage. And it basically is telling you that players at that school, really good players at the school, regardless of the class, they're not saying, why would I go to Miami? This is a player who, from everything he's heard from his coaches, from his teammates, from his family, he believes that Miami is going to be a great program by the time he gets here, or he wouldn't be committing right now. So it tells you what everyone else around him is telling him the expectations are for the Miami Hurricanes under Mario Cristobal, and that's something that should be celebrated.
Yeah, no doubt, and just a great job by Mario and the staff of looking ahead, continuing to plant their foundation in South Florida as they should be. And that's the best thing about a 2026 commitment from a kid like this at this point. Just the tea leaves, the signals that it sends up and down the community in South Florida. So nice pickup there for the Canes. All right, Stephen, let's talk a little bit about your excursion out to Chaminade yesterday. Always a lot going on out there. Those guys never disappoint. You usually got to be face to face with them to get the best stuff out of those guys. But, we've got a story on the website this morning on Jeremiah Smith and confirming for you that he will be attending a few of Miami's key games this year, home games against Texas A&M and Clemson, a road game at Florida State, which is also trying to get him, as well as the Hurricanes, away from Ohio State. I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, he's been committed to Ohio State for so long. Now he's going to be, going out and seeing some games this fall and stuff. Do you get the impression that he is just enjoying this process and that the Ohio State thing remains a foregone conclusion? Or does Jeremiah Smith come across to you as an elite prospect who really might be more open than people think?
So back in January and February, I remember talking to him multiple times and really thinking to myself, man, this sounds like a kid who wants to be at Miami, but he can't because he has no idea what this program's going to offer him. Miami has not had serious stability among the coaching ranks for quite some time, in terms of, not only head coaches being turned over, but new coordinators constantly, new assistants constantly, new quarterbacks coach, new receivers coach, all kinds of changes with personnel, uncertainty at the quarterback position for really so long, really up until De'Ara King and Tyler Van Dyke, kind of came in and really cemented themselves as, the starters for their respective teams. But it seemed to me like, he really did give a lot of thought to Miami, but he was in a position where he kind of had to pick Ohio State. When you look at the way that they've developed their receivers with Brian Hartline, the offensive production that team has year in and year out, not to mention the fact that they just win up in Columbus. And it kind of felt to me like, man, this was a guy Miami definitely could have had if, one, I think they had done a little bit better job recruiting him whenever the staff first got here. And two, if they had just had some semblance of on-field offensive success last season. And that's what he's looking for this year. He kind of reiterated what his father said over the summer and what he has said multiple times, which is he's going to keep his eye on Miami, but he needs to see offensive production. Plain and simple. He expects the Miami offense to be a lot better this year under Shannon Dawson. Shannon actually was the offensive coordinator for his cousin, Geno Smith, whenever Geno was the quarterback at West Virginia. And so Geno has spoken very highly of Shannon Dawson. And Jeremiah Smith has a lot of respect for him. He knows the kind of success that Dawson has had as an OC. And he said point blank, I think Miami's offense is going to be better this year. I really do. And so I asked him, so what's it going to take for this team to get you to flip from Ohio State? Is it going to be, like a stat that they have to hit? Is it going to be something, kind of more broad and general than that? And he said it's going to be kind of the it when you see it type of thing. So they're going to be watching this Miami team and just see, is this offense moving in the right direction? And is there a possibility at Miami for real serious growth to end up becoming, a top 15 overall selection, the number one receiver taken in the NFL draft, which is what your expectation is whenever you're not only the number one receiver in the country, but when you're the number one overall recruit in the country. So Miami's going to be a team that they're watching very carefully. And Miami is staying in this freaking mix. And, that's kind of the reason, why I said earlier, it feels like this kid wants to commit to Miami. Definitely not now. I am not saying that now, but a few months ago, it really did feel like, this was a kid who wanted to commit to Miami at one point in time, but, he just really, whenever you sit down and you look at everything on paper, you really think, man, Ohio State does have more to offer right now. And certainly no one's going to be bashing you for that when you look at the success that Ohio State has had in the past couple of years. But if Miami can piece things together this year, I think they'll really have a chance. And the fact that he's still taking visits to Miami and planning on visits to Miami, coming down for games, it tells me that he has a little bit of hope that, maybe Miami can be good. If Miami knocks off Texas A&M, I think that's a very good step in the right direction. If they knock off Clemson and the offense looks good, then all of a sudden I think we're having some real conversations, because that probably puts Miami on a 10-win projection. If you're beating Texas A&M and Clemson, you're probably winning 10 games or more. So I think that this is going to be a really, really, really important season in the recruitment of Jeremiah Smith, and that I really do believe that Miami's hopes for landing him do rest on this season.
All right. I know I'm an old guy, and I'm not in tune to the language of millennials. No argument. You said that Miami is in the fricking mix. Fricking mix. Okay. What the heck is fricking? Okay. I've never heard of that word fricking.
All right. Freaking?
What's fricking?
All right. So freaking and fracking, right? Well, fricking's right in the middle of that. Fricking is like fracking, but with an I. And it's also like freaking, but with an I instead of an EA.
Okay. So you have Ohio State over here. They're fracking. You've got Florida State and Florida over here. They're flicking.
Yeah, sure. We'll call them flicking.
Okay.
And then
Miami's right in the middle, and they're in the middle of the frickin' mix right here in the middle. Okay.
They're in
Now-
the middle of the mix because I'm not sure what kind of language I can use on this show.
All right, but here's my question. Okay, you said that he kind of needed to commit to Ohio State, and like I don't understand that. This is the number one receiver in the United States. Okay, you acknowledge that you had the impression early on that he wanted to come to play for Miami. Miami has the onus is on Miami to show him something this season. No argument from me at all. But like he's also flirting with Florida. He's flirting with Florida State. I don't believe he had to commit yet. Okay, I don't believe that the number one receiver in the country has to secure his spot at Ohio State. So I'm a little bit confused by this whole recruitment of Jeremiah Smith because I agree with everything you said from my vantage point that he really is considering staying in state and possibly going to Miami or Florida State. I don't think he's playing with everybody. I think that he legitimately is being recruited by all these different schools and they all believe they have a chance. I just don't understand why he had to pull the trigger so early. But I guess it's neither here nor there. That's Ohio State's problem to try to hold on to him. But anyway, we have an update on Jeremiah Smith on the website this morning. And Stephen, you also spoke to Josiah Trader and got an update with him that we'll have on the website here probably in the next 24 hours or so. And then another thing going on at Chaminade this week, and we had a story on the website yesterday talking about this from a preliminary standpoint. We will have more coverage as the week goes on. Safety Zaquan Patterson is going to be announcing his commitment on Saturday. So we will have continued coverage of that as the week goes on as well. But let's see, turning to a little bit of a different topic now, our coverage of the Miami Hurricanes football team continued in earnest over the last 24 hours. We'll be continuing even more so moving forward as we talk to a bunch of different players today. We're going to be talking to the Brown brothers and some of the other DBs later this morning. But yesterday was a day that we had a chance to talk a little bit of defensive line. And we got a couple stories on the website this morning. We got a story with Jason Taylor talking about all of his guys. Make sure you check that out. But we also have a story about the guy that I think is one of the real keys to this season. They need this guy to be just an absolute man freak this season. He has shown us flashes in the past. We need to see it on an every down basis. All of the reports that I'm getting from the practice field are that is happening in fall camp. Okay, now the question is, can defensive tackle Leonard Taylor take this level of game that he is showing on the practice field into Saturdays this fall from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, become a dominant defensive tackle? If he can do it, guys, he will be a first-round draft pick next April when the NFL gets back together because he has that type of ability. If you say to an NFL scout, who is the best prospect on Miami's team going into the season, they won't be saying Tyler Van Dyke. They will be saying Leonard Taylor. So, Matt, like myself, you have covered Leonard Taylor going back to his days at Miami Palmetto High School. He's always baffled. I mean, just because he has not been able to be as consistent as people would like his first couple of years. I said to him at Media Day, Leonard, you've shown us these flashes of greatness. Why do we not see it on a more regular, consistent basis? And I mean, he's the nicest kid in the world. He's a big teddy bear. And he kind of looked at me and smiled. And he said, I admit it. I take plays off. I have not been in the best physical condition that I could be in. I get tired out on the field. So I was like, wow. I was like stunned that he was being so honest. And, he talked about how he feels like he's getting in better shape. Well, people are telling me that he's showing that in practice, Matt. Your thoughts on the kind of season that Leonard Taylor can have this year for the Hurricanes?
I mean, look, the sky's the limit for him. But I will tell you that the people who know Leonard Taylor the best are aside from his mother, are the coaches. And I'm going to read you two quotes from Jason Taylor, and you tell me which of these quotes is about Leonard Taylor and which is about somebody else, okay? Another defensive tackle. So Jason Taylor said about one of the tackles, quote, he had a really good camp, has come a long way. He's playing better, trusting his technique. He's bought into what we're doing. He's not understanding just the what and the how, but also the why. Okay, that's one defensive tackle. Here's what he said about the other defensive tackle. He's got good size, some of the best technique I've ever seen, plays with great footwork, hand placement, pad level. He knows what's coming, a very cerebral football player, just a technically sound football dude. Which of those two quotes do you think sounds like he's more excited about that player? And then which of those players do you think is Leonard Taylor?
I know the answer, so I'm gonna let Steven take this one.
Which sounds like a more excited quote? Like, like, wow, we're really excited about this guy. Which of those two quotes sounds like I'm excited about that guy? Quote A or quote B?
The obvious one?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
You're not overthinking it. You don't overthink anything anyway. You're, just use your brain like you
speaker,
normally do.
I'm a simple-minded man, Matt.
Correct. So what's the answer? I mean, people are waiting for Stephen Wagner's answer here.
B?
Yeah, of course. B, he's talking about Branson Dean. A, he's talking about Leonard Taylor. He was way more excited yesterday talking about Branson Dean's development than Leonard Taylor's. Like, that doesn't make me very excited because I know what Branson Dean is. And what Branson Dean is not the biggest, strongest, fastest, lifts the most, jumps the highest guy. He's just a guy who's like, he can make some plays here and there. He's good enough. He's not going to be a detriment to the defense. He's not as good as Darrell Jackson because they need that guy to be a run stopper. He's not a run stopper. He's better as honestly as a pass rusher than he's a run stopper. But like the Leonard Taylor quote, and he was asked about Leonard Taylor. He just decided to bring up Branson Dean after that. Okay. The question was, Leonard Taylor's amazing. Talk about him a little bit, something like that. And that's what Jason Taylor said. Now, is Jason Taylor downplaying Leonard Taylor on purpose to get in his head? I don't know. But you would hope that when those two things were said right next to each other, that he would have some more positive things to say about LT. When you're going on and on about how Branson Dean has some of the best footwork he's ever seen. I mean, and Leonard Taylor, yeah, he had a good camp. Are you kidding me? Anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising. But I mean, Leonard Taylor's the first guy I ask about after every scrimmage, after practices, and I have been getting good reviews. But honestly, this is one that I want to see with my own eyes on Saturday. Like so many guys on this team. I mean, that's my mindset going into this season. Just show us. Let's not. And Mario's on board with that mindset. He doesn't want he doesn't want a bunch of chatter either. Like, it's time to beat somebody. It's time to beat somebody who can walk and chew gum. Hello, Jay Collette. It's time to beat somebody with a pulse. Okay, and you're gonna have a lot of chances this year. This is a very good schedule. You're gonna have a lot of big games. Clemson, FSU, Texas A&M. I mean, even North Carolina could be a big game if they start out their season the way that people think they will. So this is going to be a season of opportunity for the Miami Hurricanes. Time to beat somebody. To do it, they need their best players to perform like their best players. I'm talking about All-American Cam Kinchins, who I've discussed a lot this preseason. I want to see him play like an All-American. Leonard Taylor, if he plays the way he's capable of, is also an All-American, okay? But he's not an All-American because he's never been able to put it all together to convince everybody that he should even be considered to be an All-American. So these guys, Matt, this year have got to perform. The Miami Hurricanes football program needs to beat some teams that are decent.
I mean, yeah, we know this guy is purple. So, yeah, I mean, and yes, this guy is purple, people. I've said it multiple times. Steven doesn't believe it. It's true. Hens lay eggs every day if they're happy, and the sky is purple if you're looking at wavelength colors. So, yeah, Gary Ferman, as usual, states the obvious. Thank you, Gary Ferman. Great. Your next soliloquy. I'm very excited for it.
Oh my God!
Maybe you can mute yourself again and talk through it. That was really exciting the other day.
Yeah. All right. So then let me shift over to the other side of the ball. We have stories on the website on Francis Maigoa, the true freshman who is poised to start at right tackle, and then also Samson Okinola, who's working not just at left tackle, but we found out yesterday that he's also getting a lot of cross training at guard. And Matt, I thought that was kind of interesting. That was one of the more interesting revelations coming out of practice yesterday, was that Samson was also taking reps at the guard position. Sounds like they are getting him ready to play somewhere this year, relatively quickly.
Yes. He's obviously not quite ready because there were some other players who sort of commented on him a little bit, and it just sounds like, you know, he's not quite there yet. I mean, physically he's there. It seems like mentally he's understanding the plays, but he, you know, technique-wise, he just wasn't at that same level program as a Francis Mauigoa. So I think the hope was that somebody would beat out Inez Cooper at guard, and Inez Cooper's fine. He's fine, but you always want better, you know. And Inez wasn't real good last year. He's made strides since then. He was sort of forced into action, and Inez told us that yesterday. You know, he was throwing in for the final 6 games, like he was upset about it. You know, the way he made it sound. But it is important that the line have depth, and so you have Sampson, who I think will get reps here and there at guard and tackle as needed. It's good that he's cross training, which they all do. That's not breaking information like Gary makes it sound. They all cross train. You know, he's going to be a tackle. He can also.
Man, I can only run with what I brung, man. Like, I can't make up scintillating tidbits from the practice field. Like, this is what we have to work with today.
That's great.
Okay,
So
Leonard Taylor is doing better. Branson Dean is getting more excitement out of Jason Taylor than Leonard Taylor. Samson Oklahoma is cross training between left tackle and guard. Francis Mauigoa remains on track to start at right tackle. These are the nuggets of the day. This show is about the news of the day. I mean, I don't know what you want from me, man.
I would like to finish a sentence. So you got Sampson and Matthew McCoy really are the backups at this point across the interior and at tackle, and they're obviously unproven, but they have very high ceilings. And then at center, your backup, honestly, at center right now, it appears to be Luis Cristobal, which he is not. You know, if that happens, that's a big problem. So I'm hoping they have a backup to the backup plan for that in case.
If Matt Lee gets hurt, I think Jalen Rivers goes inside.
I think I agree, but that would be, that's not a great situation, quite honestly.
No, they need Matt Lee to stay healthy.
Yeah, they need Matt. That's probably, Matt Lee and Tyler Van Dyke, honestly, are probably the 2 players on offense that you have to have stay healthy all year. If either of them goes down, it's going to create a big problem that'll reverberate either across the offensive line or the entire offense if it's Tyler. But yeah, those are obviously key areas. And today we're going to be talking to the cornerbacks, so that'll be interesting. Yesterday we got some feedback from the offensive linemen. Today we'll talk to the cornerbacks. I'm still not sure that Miami, in their heart of hearts, knows that they're going to be okay at cornerback. They weren't thrilled with Devontae Brown in the spring, but nobody's been better than him in the fall. And they may very well start a true freshman, Damari Brown, his brother, on the other side. And in Lance Guidry's defense, if the corners don't hold up, you can't run the Lance Guidry defense. You just can't. Like, it's predicated on cornerbacks being able to cover down the field. In
the Brown brothers, I trust, Matt.
The Brown brothers, yeah. I was, yeah. I mean, look, we'll see. What can Brown do for you, right? That's the UPS thing. Maybe UPS can become a NIL sponsor for the Brown brothers. But yeah, that's probably the biggest key on defense to me. Everyone talks about the defensive tackles and how the run game has been really good because the defensive line hasn't been, front seven, I should say, hasn't been real good against the run this fall so far. Not up to the standard for sure. But to me, the biggest question, I'm not as worried about the run game as I am the cornerbacks, the boundaries holding up. They went so far as to say off spring ball that it was bad enough that they moved to Corey Couch to boundary, and all the reporters were just shaking their head watching to Corey Couch in practices when we were able to watch practices earlier this fall, because he just clearly didn't belong there. He clearly was not a boundary corner, and they left him there for a week. But that tells you something. It tells you they're not thrilled. And when they put a true freshman there, it tells you something too. They were so desperate to find anybody. They took a JUCO guy. They took 3 transfers, whatever it was. I mean, anybody who would come here, cornerback, they transferred him in because they after spring ball, by the way, they took these guys, 3 of them. Judeus Richard, Jaden Davis, and Demetrius Freeney after the spring, because they said, uh-oh, that's what that tells you. That's an uh-oh when you take 3 cornerback transfers after you already took Devontae Brown as a transfer before the spring.
And Darryl Porter a year ago.
Darryl Porter last year was a transfer in. So, that's not a great sign. That, to me, is the biggest concern is cornerback. Other people might say defensive tackle depth. Can Leonard Taylor hold up? If he doesn't, then, we have nothing at defensive tackle. Corners are a way bigger concern because the style of defense Lance Guidry plays, you can mask the defensive tackles because he's going to have people, safeties or linebackers, crashing up the middle. They'll help prevent some of these runs from breaking out, hypothetically. They'll help stack the line of scrimmage. They're going to be stacking the box like you've never seen before. Makes Manny Diaz look like he was playing prevent defense half the time. But those corners, if they don't hold up, it's such a big problem, I can't even tell you. So we're going to just have to find out what happens. And, Lance Guidry, at these other places he's been, they have not faced the level of quarterback and receiver they're going to see at North Carolina and Florida State. And I just hope Lance Guidry is prepared for it and has a plan for it, because there are going to be times where he's got to just back off, show that they're going to do their normal blitzing and just freaking back off into your zone, into your whatever it's going to be, cover 3, cover 4, whatever, like something to help the corners, because they're going to need a lot of help for the cornerbacks.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this morning for Good Morning CaneSport. We packed a lot in there, about 31 minutes for you today as you begin your day. If you like the show, like our YouTube channel, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube in growing our audience. And more so than anything, if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, the season starts next week. Hop on over, get yourself a sub, come join our community of fans. We don't think you will be sorry. It will be our pleasure to do everything that we can do to enhance your fan experience once again this season. So for Stephen Wagner, Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you once again, everybody. We'll see you next time.